Psalm 47, 1 through 4 says, "O clap your hands, all peoples, shout to God with a voice of joy. For the Lord Most High is to be feared, a great king over all the earth. He subdues all peoples under the nations and under our feet, and he chooses the inheritance for us, the glory of Jacob whom he loves. Selah." Well, if you're joining us in reading through the 6-month reading plan through the book of Psalms, today's reading is Psalm 47, and I encourage you to read that psalm. Well, this psalm is a psalm of joy. It's also a psalm which has become incredibly rich insight into who God is and how he interacts with the earth and his people. Through this psalm, we can rejoice of who God is and his greatness. And through this psalm, we can rejoice when we are struggling because of God is and his providence. Now, every once in a while, I read a story or hear about the one that impacts my life and causes me to do things I might not otherwise do. About a year ago, I read such a story. It wasn't so much the story that impressed me, rather it was the people's trust in Christ that was absolutely incredible. In the Middle East, particularly those countries where Christians are a minority, often displays an animosity towards Christians as well as others. That animosity sometimes turns violent, and as we've recently seen with ISIS and with the Coptic Orthodox Church persecution by Muslims in Egypt, Christians are dying at a greater number than ever before. It's a well-known and established fact that in the 20th century, there were more Christian martyrs than in all the other centuries combined. As I read that story, something jumped out at me. Some of the Christians in that area, those known as Coptic Christians, tattoo a small cross on the right wrist. And there are 3 purposes for this cross. First, it is for identification when they go into church, because some non-Christians sometimes attempt to infiltrate and blow a church up. People are greeted at the door by an usher who will make a determination as to whether or not that person should come into the church escorted, unescorted, or not be allowed at all. A Christian will be allowed in the door if they display this small cross on their wrist. Secondly, as they are living their lives, they can always look down on their wrist to remind themselves to whom they belong. Finally, in the event that they are kidnapped and tortured, they will look at this right wrist to remind themselves of who they are and be comforted by that. So after much prayer and a little consternation from my family, honestly, I decided that I should place a cross on my right wrist. I view this as a solidarity with those Christians who are in the areas where they are being persecuted, and also to remind myself of to whom I belong. No, I didn't take this step lightly, and I don't necessarily recommend it for anyone else. But each one of us should have something that we can focus on to remind ourselves of who we are and what we're doing and to whom our allegiance belongs. And if you would like a PDF copy of this entire reading plan, please send an email to phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.